This is a classic 1968 Fiat 124 Spider. By the time Fiat had done selling this in the United States, they had sold 170,000 units. That's a lot of Spiders. Well, meet the 2017 Fiat 124 Spider. And if this looks familiar, well, it's because it's jointly developed by Mazda. Some journalists have nicknamed this the Fiata. Is that fair? Well, there's only one way to find out, and that is to take it for a ride. And that is coming up right now on the Fast Lane Car.
Amoroso, notte giorno di torno girano, delle belle turbando al riposo, Narcisetto Adolgino d'amor. Delle belle turbando al riposo, Narcisetto Adolgino d'amor.
As always, there's an embargo to keep it fair for all the waves of journalists that are going to test drive this car. So while I can't tell you how it drives, I can certainly show you how it drives. Let me just show you how it drives. Here we go. If this 1.4 liter turbo looks familiar to you, it's because it's the same engine that's in the Fiat 500 Abarth. In this case, it puts out 160 horsepower and 184 pound-foot of torque. Now, if you step up to the Abarth version of this car, you get 4 more horsepower. What's really cool about this, it's the first time that this engine has actually been placed into a rear-wheel drive car. And if you're a tuner with a bigger turbo and maybe a stage 2 upgrade, you can get 230 horsepower out of this, which will at some point make this into a very fast car to drive. This is the launch edition of the car in this special blue paint, and it's relatively expensive. It's $35,000, but there's only going to be a handful of them made. If you really want the base model, it's called the Classica. It starts at about $25,000. If you want to get a little bit more luxurious, you can step up to the Lusso, which starts at about $27,000. You get bigger wheels, you get a leather interior, and then if you want the sportiest model of all, the Abarth, that's about $29,000. I started this review by asking a simple question. Is it fair to call this car the Fiata? I really think the difference is much more subtle than that. The difference is really whether you prefer sushi or whether you prefer pasta. It's that straightforward. If you like the interior of the Mazda Miata, you're going to like the interior of this Fiat 124 Spider because it's basically identical. The instrument layout, the placement of the dials, even the steering wheel has a very similar feel. And that's all good because this is a very nice place to spend time, especially in this launch edition. Very supple leather, very soft plastics, and a very sporty steering wheel. Fiat was kind enough to set up an autocross course for us here to take the Abarth around to see just how it handles. The Abarth has the black hood, the matte hood, so that it doesn't reflect glare. This is very Italian. Fiat dug deep into their heritage to come up with a front fascia and a rear fascia that match the classic 124 Spider. There are 2 transmission options. The base is a 6-speed manual. There's also a 6-speed automatic. The manual gets 26 in the city and 35 on the highway. And if you flip those numbers around, you get 25 in the city and 36 on the highway with the automatic. Interestingly, the Fiat 124 is about 100 pounds heavier than the Miata, and that's largely due to the fact that this has a different turbo engine, but the manual transmission in this car is actually the old manual from the previous generation Miata. Which one would I buy? Oh, that is a tough question. I suppose if I wanted an Italian take on a British sports car, I'd go with the Fiat, and if I wanted a Japanese take on it, I'd go with the MX-5. They're both very different, but there's one factor that would make me buy this over the Mazda, and that is that I live at a mile above sea level, and the turbocharged engine is always going to be a better choice at a mile above sea level because it compensates for some of that loss of air pressure. So yeah, I'd get this one. But if I lived at sea level, I think I'd use other metrics. For instance, which one has a better dealer network? If you love Italian cars, then I'd go for the Fiat 124. And if you're a Mazda Miata MX-5 fanboy, then definitely go for the Mazda. So is it fair to label the Fiat 124 the Fiata? Well, yes and no. It is fair because it is in essence the same platform and a shared development with Mazda and Fiat, which in fact is a British car that was reinterpreted by the Japanese into a modern convertible sports car. But it is not fair because Fiat spent a lot of time, in fact 3 years, to give this a very distinct Italian taste. Come back on Friday when we can actually talk about the driving experience. As always, this is Roman reporting for the Fast Lane Car. Check out tflcar.com for more news, views, and of course, real world reviews. See you next time. Ciao. Ladies and gentlemen, check it out. I've got 4 convertibles that compete for your hard-earned dollar. Right here, the 2017 Fiat 124 Spider. And next to me is the Mazda Miata. Now, if they look similar, it's because they're built on the same assembly plant in Hiroshima, Japan. Here we have the Mini Cooper convertible. Unlike those 2 cars, this has 4 seats. And of course here, well, we have the Volkswagen Beetle convertible. And they're all kind of lifestyle cars, they're all fun cars. The question is, which one is the best to drive?